Hello. I want to talk to you about the HSBC brand strategy. It's an interesting strategy. I think it helps to understand the way that a brand can begin, can evolve, can meet its customers' needs, and can achieve significant business objectives. It's an interesting story. It's a story that I was personally involved in very heavily between the years 1999 and 2005. So I hope you enjoy the story, and I look forward to going through it with you. My objective in doing this is to review how the whole strategy was born. Whilst it was a communication strategy that people saw, indeed it was a business strategy that evolved into a marketing strategy that became the communication strategy. So it was absolutely organization-wide. And it certainly has embraced the cultural challenges of an international marketplace. There is quite a lot in here about culture. And culture, of course, can mean different things. It can mean things like corporate culture or creative culture or legislative culture. But in this case, what we're talking about is societal culture. Why is it significant? Well, it's partly explained by this very simple spectrum, the left-hand end of which talks about efficiency. From a marketing point of view, you want to be as efficient as you possibly can be to make maximum use of your budget. However, that would probably mean saying one thing to everybody on the planet. That's by far the cheapest thing to do. But at the other end of the spectrum, we want to be relevant, and obviously marketers want to be as relevant as possible, which would really imply ultimate relevance, talking to each individual individually. Clearly that's impossible. It would be very, very expensive and would not be feasible under any circumstance. Communications aims to build awareness and empathy and relationships with prospects and customers. At best, it really wants to deliver an emotional link between those products and consumers, and do that creatively to inspire and spark changes in people's ideas or behavior. Engagement is most likely where there is some kind of common foundation or understanding between participants, i.e. between the brand and their consumer. But brands have a limited time with which to develop this relationship. So efficiency in communications is really key, but relevance or effectiveness is a crucial first step. Let's think about HSBC. What do we know about it? Do we know what it is? I'm pretty sure you do. It's a financial services organization. Do we know its geography? Its spread? Well, many people think that it is a Hong Kong organization. Other people think it's a British organization. But it was founded by Brits, indeed by canny Scots, and currently has its headquarters in Hong Kong. Do you know its positioning? We'll come on to that. Do you know its age? Some people say 100 years, some people say 150 years. I've heard 180 years, 200 years. Actually, this brand is a mere 20 years old. So back in 1998, there was no HSBC. There were more than 50 different banks, all with their own long histories, advocates, loyal staff, brand equity, brand positioning, each of them different. The only uniting factor was their corporate ownership by a holding company, which was, of course, the Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation. So the component parts owned by this holding company had evolved over 130 years from mercantile routes in Asia, through organic growth, and more importantly, through shrewd acquisition, to become one of the top financial service organizations in the world. Originally, it financed trade, particularly with China, and indeed quite a lot of that trade was opium-based. But now it embraces retail, it embraces cards, investment, commercial banking, corporate banking, trade banking, private banking, online banking, insurance, asset management, all sorts of stuff. Multiple countries, multiple products, 100 million plus customers. It currently has the largest footprint of any bank in terms of countries and territories and in terms of customers worldwide. The then chairman of the company was a gentleman called John Bond, Sir John Bond. He understood marketing, and he had the foresight to see that globalization was just around the corner and would change the very fabric of what banks did. Here is Sir John Bond, and what he said was that HSBC, in his mind, is a worldwide organization operating in a global marketplace offering world-class solutions. He went on to say that our strategy calls for the development of a strong global consumer brand. Now, that's interesting language because at that point in time, the main focus of all of the banks in all of the countries was trade, commercial, and investment banking. They were not a particularly strong consumer brand. Some markets were different. So Midland Bank, for instance, in the UK was different. It was primarily retail. We're going to focus on the early part of the story, which is what was underpinned by this statement by the then chairman. So we're back in November 1998, when HSBC first announced their new unified global brand, which would be using the letters HSBC and the red hexagon symbol. This was a decision taken as part of a big strategic plan, a roadmap which had as its smart objective the idea of doubling shareholder value within 5 years. That's a huge objective. With a new clear focus on personal banking, building strong consumer brand had to be a key component of the strategy. So HSBC decided to bring together multiple disparate brands that they'd been operating into one unified global brand. There were over 25 different slogans in advertising. There were no synergies. There was different corporate identities. There were different strategies, different media uses. So the decision to rebrand meant the disappearance of some very well-recognized names like Midland Bank, or British Bank of the Middle East, or the Hong Kong Bank, or Banco Barramindas in Brazil. Unsurprisingly, many commentators and marketers questioned the wisdom of this initiative, throwing away the precious equity that had existed and been built up for 130 plus years. So HSBC were cautious, but they calculated the risks, and they figured that losing recognition, alienating customers, was a problem, but they were confident that if customers were generally satisfied with the service that they were getting, and if the service with the new identity was improved, they wouldn't stop doing business with you simply because you change your name. So their clear aim was to transfer the equity of the old subsidiary brands into the new parent brand, and in doing so, to create a world-beating global brand. There were then 170,000 staff in 6,000 offices across 81 countries. So the task of rebranding was enormous, and it was very much a team effort. So getting people from all around the world to work together in ways that they really weren't accustomed to was a difficult challenge. The authority came from the very top of the organization, empowering a strong central marketing team based in London. And there's a key lesson. If you're ever going to embark on a major rebrand, make sure that you've got the chairman, the CEO, the managing director in your camp. You need the weight of their authority to drive it through. From a branding point of view, a fundamental shift from the bank's previously federal structure to centrally led and coordinated efforts, leveraging traditional strength of the organization, which were short lines of communication to key players and quick, decisive decision-making. Those were critical to the success of the mission. So, how would you go about that challenge? And just as a reminder, we've got 50 different brands all around the world, each one of them with their long, valuable equity. We're in all these places with all these people, tens of thousands of products and services, 100 million customers. And on top of it all, there really isn't much budget left for marketing comms because the cost of physically changing the identity of every branch in every country, and all the stationery and the furniture and the carpets and the signage and everything else, was huge. But the mandate from the chairman was that we wanted to do this once at one time all around the world, so there really wasn't much time to develop it. What are you going to do about it? And I'm going to pause here so you can think what your answer would be.